Good mornings, my dear students. Today I'd just like to start my topics about the research writings, and I know that this part of your that included within your study, and when you write your thesis or even the paper, it represents a very important successful part during your study. When you write successfully your thesis or even the paper from the first part, which including the thesis and abstract, the thesis title and the abstract of that title, abstract of that thesis, to the end part, which present the discussion and conclusion. And this could be applicable from both cases, your thesis and your paper. And I know that the most of you have been aware of how can I write successfully that part in terms of how can you deliver the message that you want to do to the review, to the readers, and to the audience, and even in your presentations, in the conferences, etc. But today I'd just like to focus on the main keys, on the main point. I'm not going to tell you everything about the title of the thesis and the abstract of the thesis, how it could be written incorrectly. But I just try to highlight the most important points that you need to put in your consideration when you're dealing with those very important parts of your research. So from the titles, introduction part of the thesis, abstract and the title, rewriting and proofreading. Sorry, I forget to tell you, I'm Dr. Firas Al-Taweel, an associate professor and assistant professors in the Department of Periodontics. And most of the slides I just tried to update it from my colleague, Dr. Saif Al-Arab, who made that presentation, but I just tried to, I added some points and updated that version of presentation and tried to tell you that part. Hopefully it's going to be beneficial. This title is a very important part, which represent the first sentence, the first phrase in your writing when you write your thesis or a paper. Mainly summarizes the main idea or ideas of your study. The title, it doesn't mean that you need to expect that your audience or the readers gonna understand everything and should be informative by your expectations and even your imagination, that you want to imagine that the titles could be very informative and that's it, and give the main pictures of your topic or study to the readers. But mainly it try to summarize the main idea. Just focus on that word, the main idea. Okay. There are certain rules or principles should be available in that title. The good title contains the fewest possible words that adequately describe the contents and the purpose of your research. Unfortunately, we saw that a lot of the students in your presentation, your dissertations, and even the paper writing, they put the title as long as they want to do. And this is not the case in academic writing. The academic writing tries to summarize the main idea by your way, of course, but summarizing and summarizing and summarizing. So that means that you have to put as fewest possible words that adequately describe the content or the purpose of your research. I just put an example here of the three different sentences as the titles, but it gives the main idea possibly. The first one, if you can see, for example, this one, does vaccinated children and adolescents with inactivated influenza virus inhibit the spread of influenza in unimmunized residents of the rural communities? Just stay with me at that sentence. This represents the title, but you can see that it's a very long and very boring one. The author here tried to put as much as information he want or she want to the reader just to understand. He just expect that the reader need to read all of these words in one sentence to understand what he want to do. This is not the case. It is completely wrong and unacceptable. you shouldn't put as much as information you want in that title. Just put the main idea. So the first one is not met the main criteria of the title making successfully. If we come to the second one, for example here, influenza vaccination of children, a randomized trial. Here the author just tried to put as short as a sentence contain that required information they want to do, but it is not even acceptable because the meaning is missing here in that sentence. Is not enough. Just influenza vaccination of children, a randomized trial. So what's the point? What's the problem that you want to point or to highlight it, just to solve it? For example, that message to the audience, to the reader. Okay, so it is exactly the opposite for the first one. The first one is very long, and here it's very short. But for the last one, if you can see, for example, effect of child influenza vaccination on infection rates, okay, in rural communities, a randomized trial. Here, the author tried to put a different points in a one sentence, just to try to put a title successfully, have enough information on the treatment, on the solving a problem, okay, in a certain circumstances. So the effect of child influenza vaccination, which is the main target, so the main treatment tool, sorry, on infection rate, which is we have the problem here. We have an infection in rural communities in a certain occasion on circumstances, and the type of one, even part of the methodology put it, which is a randomized trial, is not a cross-sectional or even the cohort one or whatever. So the randomized trial, the type of the methodology you use on the rural circumstances, the infection, the problem, and how can you treat that problem according to the treatment that you want to do experiment, which is the child influenza vaccination. So here the three different example. We just compare between three of them very quickly. I just repeating. The first one is so boring and so long and too much information, which is not necessary, to be honest. The second one, influenza vaccination of children, which is that's it, and this is not complete. And the effect of child influenza vaccination on infection rate in rural communities, which is barely have enough information in a very good scientific way. Anyway, the titles, there's a certain principles and points that you need to put it in your consideration when you create your title. The title, the very important point that should convey the main topics of the study. Sometimes students to put the titles in a way it might refer to the topic, but is not giving the main idea of the topic. Here we just need to focus on the main topics of the study. Okay, and again, it doesn't mean that you have to put the mainly that topic in an informative or in an encyclopedic way. This is completely wrong. You have to be a very summarizing, conclusive way, but mainly reflecting that topic, the main topic of the study. Also highlight the importance of the research, the importance why you do that kind of the study, because there's an importance of certain things that you want to refer to, and just to try to cover it and reflect it to the audience or the reader. Okay, be concise. Very important, the conciseness of that title should be concise. It's not disintegrated into these different parts. Should be compacted as a one part of work, which could be solid, accurate, valid one, and correct one. And the very important one, attract readers. Some of the titles, even I'm definitely sure about it. When you read it in different papers, for example, on the website, you can see from the title is very attractive. It's very charming when you read that titles, because the authors put it in a way, very attractive way, logically sequenced, and sometimes using a signposting and even a different kind of phrasing, and we can come that in a minute in the following next slides. So these are the most important 4 points, that the reflecting the main topics and highlighting the importance, the conciseness, and the coherent one, and the attraction. How can you attract your readers? from the formulating the titles that you want to do. Regarding what we call it the working titles, the titles have different types: the working title, the final version title, before final version title also. But the first things, the primary version of the titles that you want to do or to put is called the working titles. And the working titles starting very early during the early steps of your writing and even your workings. Sometimes when you work on your topic, during your workings, you put the title very incipiently. They put it in the first edition version, we call it. Even in that, during the protocol agreements, when you put that your titles, whether in the master or the PhD students, you put that titles on the scientific committee within your departments. When they give you an approval of that title, it doesn't mean that this title, this is a very wrong thing that the most of the student is scared about, which is how can I change the title from the protocol agreement to the final version, which is completely wrong. You can't do the title, you can't modify the titles, you can't change the title, but don't drift or shift away from the main idea of your title. This is not acceptable. You have to stick to yourselves within the main topic, but don't distract yourself later within a different idea or different topic. This is not acceptable from most of the departments, and even in terms of scientific way. So the working title is a very primary version of that titles. Should be developed early just to reorient your attention or to reorient your thinking about the topics that you want to do in that phrase. Okay, so the mainly just to put your focus on the study in much the same way that the research problem does. Okay. Also, it's going to be used for usefully just to when you during your working sometimes when you put that working titles, but you just leave it and you forget it in a while. But when you work on that project, sometimes your working or even your explanation, your interpretations, even the way that you put the results. Sometimes you drift a little bit from the main things that you put it in the title, in the working title. So you have to every time to refer to that working titles and modify it on that version. So it means that you can reorient yourselves whenever you want to the main purpose of the study. If you feel yourself drifting off, the idea of drifting is very important. Just to put yourself again within the line of writing. The final titles, which is we call the final titles and the final version titles that you submit to the professor, is created after the research is complete, which is I think it's about the later step, the last time that before you complete your research writing and everything when you finish your work. Following the consultation with your supervisors, that you have to put it in a final version so that the title accurately capture exactly what was done. So this is represent the modification and the updating of the working title. So the working title first on the final version title. The final titles, effective titles, is in academic research papers have several characteristics. First of all, it should indicate accurately the subject and the scope of the study. When everyone read the titles, they need to understand what is your scope, or what is the subject that you want, or what is the message that you want to deliver to the readers. Okay, it should be very clear that represent or reflect exactly the scope of the research. Second, avoid using abbreviations. It's not acceptable in the research writing the titles. There's no abbreviation in the titles. You cannot use the abbreviation in any way in the title, and even in the abstract will come in a minute. Use words that create a positive impression and stimulate reader interest. My dear student, this point is a very, very, very attractive and important point I consider always. Even in terms of publications, a lot of the editor-in-chiefs and the reviewers, when they feel impressed about the titles and that is formulated in a very attractive way, even if sometimes the meaning of the rest of the topics is not as strong as the title done, sometimes is psychologically is affecting the primary decision of the editor or even the reviewer or supervisors or even the examination committee sometimes in a very good way. For example, I'll give you just an example of this because I'm from the periodontics department, so just I'd like to, you know that we have the microbiology and the immunology form of our study. So the chronicle of Performonas gingivalis, the microbiome, the human oral epithelium, and their interplay. Here, the authors use a very vocabulary strong meaning of the history of the periodontal. Instead of saying a history of Performonas gingivalis, which is one of the main important periodontal pathogen, or periodontal pathogen, and the very dangerous effect of this anaerobic bacteria to the periodontal disease. So instead of saying a history, which is give the same meaning of that, he used the term of the chronicles, which mean the significance of this microbiome. Okay, and then and then the microbiome. He said the microbiome, the human oral epithelium, and their interplay. He referred in somehow that the crosstalk between the microbiome and their host interplay, following that they are very strong and very attractive titles at the beginning. Okay. Using current nomenclature from the field of the study, when you're working, for example, in certain specialty and profession, you have to use the same language and the terms and technical terms that belong to that your specialty. You cannot use a different nomenclatures and you expect that the reader can understand what are you saying. So you try to be strict within the same field of the study. The titles are usually in the form of a phrase, most of the cases in the dissertation and the paper in the form of phrase, but sometimes the meaning of the topics can't you put it in the title in the form of, for example, in a question. And I give you this and other examples of the periodontal disease. For example, are periodontal disease really silent? And then question mark, and then a systematic review of their effect on quality of life. Here, the authors try to signposting to the very important points of the periodontal disease, not only just focusing on the biological effect of the periodontal disease and what's in terms of narrative review or systematic review or the meta-analysis one, or even a cross-sectional clinical kind of studies. And mostly we try to cover those problems. But as a part of the study, which is a systematic review here, the author mentioned, but the effect of the periodontal disease on something that we are not put it in our mind, and a certain very important point that the effect and the impact of periodontal disease on different kind of effects, which is the quality of life. So it's a very huge meaning and it's a very significant meaning. So this can tolerate the can be accepted or can be formulated, let's say, in a different way, not in the meaning of a phrase. You can put it in a question mark as a part of question. And a lot of titles you can, when you read it in the paper during your studies, is a lot of titles phrase in the form of a question mark as a question title, they said. Use corrected grammar and capitalization with the first letter. Always the first letter should be capitalized, and the correct grammar. Definitely, there's no doubt about the correct grammar, which is mandatory things that you have to put in the correct grammar and sequences. This is the main key points regarding the titles and how can you make the titles. Just put these points in your mind when trying to dealing with the titles. The next one, the very important one, which is let's talk about the abstract of a dissertation. And personally, I just think that this part, which represents the first part of your writing after the title, of course, I consider this part as a very important and a very viable one, very viable, important part of your writing, which give a very important, strong impact to the readers in terms of your dissertations and examinations committee and at your institutions, and the most important, even in the paper publication, to the process of publications, to the editor-in-chief, to the reviewers, until it's going to be published. The abstract represents an important component presented at the beginning of the thesis, of course, and it is likely the first substantive description of your work. I'm not starting with your work yet, but I'm just reading the main summarization of what have you done and what the message and the conclusion that you reached. When the abstract is when the abstract is so strong, everything's going to be flowable, and so going to be easy for the judges just to judge their work is done in the correct way. It is a summary of the whole thesis. Represent all of the major elements of your work in highly condensed form. Sometimes a lot of students suffer about this part. How can I summarize this a very long segments of working from the title, background, methodology, results, conclusion, discussion, and conclusion, and all of these chapters? How can I summarize it in just 300 words and one page? I'm not going to say it is an easy part of your writing, but it is represent a key successful part to the rest of your work. When you do it perfectly according to that key points that I'm going to say it now, this is represent a very important successful part to the rest of your work at the level of dissertation and even paper publication. Okay. An abstract often functions together with the thesis title as a standalone text, and is completely true. Together with the title, the abstract represent as a standalone text. A lot of the readers and reviewers and even editor-in-chief, when he read or she read the title and abstract correctly and represent and reflect the major points of your work, and in a condensed form in a very good way, sometimes the decision is going to be conducted at the early moments that when you read the abstract or she read the abstract. Abstract include this is a very important point. It should include clearly specify your research question. It should include the research question on the problem that you want to present to the reader within the first part of the abstract. As in the thesis itself, your research questions are critical in ensuring that the abstract is coherent and logically structured. This is an important point. Sometimes the abstract, when I read the abstract, I didn't find where is the problem and where's the question that you put it and try to answer it. Which is represent, I think, that is represent the main things and the main soul of your study. So you have to put that research questions in the abstract. They form the skeleton of to which other elements adhere, and they should be presented near the beginning of the abstract, as we said. The abstract must include the results, and the primary function of your abstract is to tell the reader what you discovered or what is your finding after the title. Other information, such as the account of your research methodology, also is needed, mainly to back the claim as part of the objective and as a part of the measurement tools when you test your aim that you put it at the first to make your to back the claims you make about your results. You should avoid citation. There's no referencing. There is no citation and reference in the abstract. Okay, because it represents your main work. Many readers will only read the abstract of your manuscript. Therefore, it has to be able to stand alone. You have to put it as a very summarized version of your complete topic, complete research or topic or subject. they don't have enough. Sometimes they don't have time to read the full articles or the full paper or the full dissertation. Sometimes they just have focus on their interest, and they find and they thought that their interest going to be within your abstract, in your work. So you have to put the abstract in a way that reflect exactly the work according to the reader interest. So exactly should be a standalone with the titles, as we said. In most cases, the abstract is the only part of the articles that appear in the indexing database, such as the Web of Science or PubMed. When you put the keywords in the PubMed, they just attract all of the information from the abstract. It's not from the papers, most of the cases. So the abstract here is very important part, and so will be the most accessed part of your articles. Okay, making a good impression will encourage a researcher to read your full papers. Definitely, when you put it and when you try to deliver the message strongly according to the what you find, and you put it in the abstract, this gives a very strong positive and good impression to the readers that this part or this articles or this paper or this thesis conducted in a very solid form. A well-written abstract can also help speed up the peer review process, definitely in terms of publication. Most of the reviewer need to read a very good abstract in order to decide to whether to stay with the rest of the paper or not. And this could be the case even in the dissertation regarding the from your supervisors till the examination committee when they during your viva. The abstract should answer these questions about the manuscript: what was done. You have to put it in your mind what was done, why did you do it, what did you find, and why are these findings useful and important. Should be reflected and should be translated according to the different section of the abstract, from the background to the methodology, results, and conclusion. Answering these questions let reader knows the most important points about your study and help them decide whether they want to read the rest of the paper or the rest of the thesis or not. There are different types of abstract, four types mainly: the critical abstract, descriptive abstract, informative abstract, and the highlight abstract. The critical one is not a frequently used one. This is basically, it provides the researcher's own evaluation and judgment. So it's kind of this critical appraisal of the researchers, of the author, when they try to refer to that topics. They want to put their main opinion on critically access this part of work in the term of abstract writing. Okay, about the study validity, reliability, or completeness, whatever. Generally 400 to 500 words, because it's not about just saying the methodology and results and conclusion. They added their own interpretation of that work, so it's going to be a bit longy. Okay, 400 to 500 words. And these types of abstracts are used infrequently, as we said. So it's not frequently used in the thesis writing and paper. Descriptive abstract mainly indicate the type of information found in the works and might include the purpose, the methodology, and the scope of the research, and that's it. So till the end of the methods and he stop or she stop writing or try to deliver the information at that point. The main purpose, the background sometimes, and the scope, the aim, and the methodology, and that's it. Some researchers consider it an outline of the work sometimes rather than the summary of the work. Descriptive abstracts are usually very short, 100 words or less. Also, there's an informative abstract represent the majority of the abstract, act as a surrogate for the work itself. The researcher represent and explain all the main argument on the important results and evidence in the thesis paper, and includes the information that can be found in a descriptive abstract, but also include the results and conclusion of the research and the recommendation of the authors. The length varies according to the discipline, of course, but is really more than 300 words in length. This represents the most majority kind of use of the abstract you use in the thesis or in the paper, and it is sections within different sections, and each section should give enough information that the reader want to know about. The highlight abstract, sometimes it is written in different academic, different meaning. Actually, it's not about the academia. May represent, sometimes reflect in a social, under politicals, or any kind of topics you might find sometimes in the website. that the author try to to highlight certain things to draw the reader attention. Okay, so most of the cases is incomplete and leading remarks may use to spark the reader interest to that point, and also to the interest of the readers. So it cannot stand independently and without its associated article. So it should be complemented with this article. It is not a true abstract, so therefore rarely used in academic writing. So most of, according to those four types, the most used one is the informative abstract. The abstract should not contain lengthy background information, as we said, references to other literature, using elliptical, sometimes using an incomplete sentences and stop without completing the rest meaning of that sentence. The abbreviation under the jargon language, which is not allowed completely within the abstract, the terms that may confuse it. So this is going to be confuse the reader attention or the reader understanding. Any sort of image, illustration, figure, or table or references should not include within the abstract. Just leave it to the main extended version of your work. The rewriting and proofreading, this is actually not belong to the abstract. I just try to highlight it here just to put it on later on in my next lectures. I will just try to repeat this on the next one slides, just to put your attention about this very important points. The rewriting and proofreading, and even this could be applicable to the abstract, by the way, but most of the cases to the main thesis on the main paper. The rewriting and proofreading means that the correction of the errors in spelling, punctuation, grammar and sentence constructions, referencings, and the idiomatic usage. So this is very important things that you need to check it: the spelling, the punctuation, how can you use the full stop, the comma, the hyphen, and the slash, etc. The grammar and sentence is very important and compulsory, of course, the referencing style and the message that you want to do. The proofreading may include identifying and alerting the passage that lacks the clarity. Another way, are they written in a poor language or the poorly constructed one? So you should check this very important point. Editing checklist. This checklist very important that you need to refer every time when you, especially with the final version of your writing abstract and even the main work. Can you point to the thesis statement in the essay? Is it clearly stated? Does the text carry out the purpose of the thesis statement? If not, does the body of the paper need some, for example, paring down sometimes with the some ideas written within the main part of your thesis, or elaboration or interpretation? Or does the thesis statement needs to be refined? Sometimes you have to change it in another way just to make it easy, for example, to the reader to reflect and improve text. Are the ideas in the thesis clearly ordered? Is there a very correctly sentences, correctly constructed sentences, on the order, on the fluency of your story? Is it clearly ordered? Are there any serious fallacies or problems in the logic of your statement? Sometimes the logic, you say some things and you explain it in a different way, so it should be matched and correctly explained. Are paragraph adequately developed? And is there a clear transition from one idea to the next? And this is unfortunately a lot of when the students try to write anything explaining part of the homeworks or dissertations or the paper. He start with an idea, but it is not follow the same idea, and just to try to transition to from one idea to another idea that give the meaning to the previous one. He just distracted to the different line of interpretation. Okay. Is the introduction clear and adequately developed? Does the conclusion do what you want it to do exactly? Does the conclusion remind us of what the thesis statement told us? All the part of your thesis should be correlated on coherence. You cannot start with the same things and the conclusion about different things. You have to be very compacted, connected. Your ideas should be connected from the first moment, from the abstract to the introduction till the last one, the conclusion. Is the tone consistent and appropriate for the audience you want to reach and the subjects you are treating? Have you avoided slang and being overly casual? Should be casual and academic one. It's not about the slang and the freestyle one. The other extreme, have you avoided sounding pretentious and stuffy? That should be written in a very simple, clear way. Okay, don't be sophisticated in the in your writing styles and put it in a very difficult and understandable way. Personal grammatical issues do not depend on the spell checkers and the grammar checkers in the word process. Sometimes it's going to be useful, of course, but sometimes you need to refer to the what you taught in English writing in terms of the grammatical construction of the phrases or the sentence you want. The paragraphs, even every times when you write the sentence on the phrases and even the different paragraphs, you should check the grammatical in a way. Sometimes they need to you need the assistance of a English grammatical expert. But sometimes if you think that your English language and the grammatical writings is perfect, you can check it by yourselves. Don't depend completely 100% on those tools that found in the word processors. This is the main points that I just tried to put in your mind about the title writing and the abstract. And of course, you can refer to a lot of references and textbooks regarding the research writings, and you can expand your knowledge about how can you successfully done this in very important two parts. But personally, these slides just, I think, reflect the main things that you have to put in your mind when you start writing the thesis and or even papers, starting from the first important point, as we said, the titles and these points that you put in your mind, and then the abstract, and the abstract should be completed in that way. Sorry if I'm being a bit long or my presentation is going to be a bit long, but this is the time that I need to spend with you, my dear students, to clarify these important points. And anyone having any problems to understand anything about that, you can come to my department in the 6th department, in the periodontics department, and I can gratefully I can explain anything that you want in person. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful to your attention, and see you in the next my next lectures and presentation. Thank you so much.